This is the Steve Gruber Show.
Well, just like the college football playoffs, we're putting a toe in the football and kicking off another brand new hour here of the Steve Gruber Show. Glad to have you on board for the conversation. So much to cover, so little time. I'm glad you're here, fighting for America with me from the foxhole of freedom. Here are three big things you need to know this hour. Number one, Alaska rocked by a 7.0 earthquake, numerous aftershocks. It's a little bumpy up there right now. Number two, Jack Bergman calls out his opponent after his opponent's social media posts are revealed. It's pretty strange activity in Michigan's 1st Congressional District. And number three, breaking news this morning out of the nation's capital. Breaking news, D.C.'s chief of police quitting. She has thrown in the towel. Pamela Smith, who was standing against the National Guard, who was there when National Guard members were gunned down in the streets just before Thanksgiving. She says she is quitting at the end of the year. Mayor Muriel Bowser said that during Smith's tenure, the city opened a real-time crime center, deployed improved technology, and passed comprehensive legislation that prioritizes accountability. Of course, she had nothing to do with that. And some people wonder if it has to do with the shooting of the National Guard members or if it's because the National Guard is there at all, pushing back on the city's autonomy from the president and his administration. But here's what the chief said, now, and I want you to hear this. What really resonated with me was going home for Thanksgiving to visit my family in Pine Bluff, Arkansas. Okay. My mom passed away 2 years ago. I've been going nonstop. I've missed many amazing celebrations, birthdays, marriages, you name it, within the family. Right? So she says she misses her family in Pine Bluff, Arkansas, and then said she won't be leaving D.C. She'll live right there. Anyhow, I don't know why she quit, but obviously it's not for family. Because if it were, she'd go back to Arkansas. Apparently, that's not going to happen. All right, let's turn our attention to another major city, Minneapolis. The Somali community has defrauded the city, according to numerous reports, of billions of dollars in aid for the SNAP programs and welfare programs and health care programs, and the list goes on, and a lot of that money being shipped out of the country. As much as $300 billion. We don't know the extent there under Tim Walz's failed leadership as governor of Minnesota. Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent had this to say about it. Listen.
The president told you, though, this week to look into Somalis who, quote, ripped off that state for billions of dollars. He said they contribute nothing. What exactly are you investigating?
Well, Margaret, to be clear, the initial fraud that was discovered by the IRS, for which I'm the acting commissioner, is discovered by IRS Criminal Investigations Unit. This was not an endogenous thing that the state of Minnesota decided we had to go in and clean up the mess for them, and this is part of the continued cleanup. A lot of money has been transferred from the individuals who committed this fraud, including those who donated to the governor, donated to Representative Omar, donated to A.G. Ellison, but they've been transferred to something called MBSs. And those are
mortgage-backed security.
No,
what do you mean?
Sorry.
Transferred to what?
These are money the Bureau services, and they are wire transfer organizations that are outside the regulated banking system.
The president told you.
Outside the regulated banking system. So there's a scam here. And then Margaret Brennan there from ABC, the ever-biased Margaret Brennan, suggested none of that money went to terrorists. How would she know that? Because the concern is when this money is being shipped back to Somalia, that it's getting in the hands of terrorist organizations. Listen to this part of the conversation.
And that money has gone overseas, and we are tracking that both to the Middle East and to Somalia to see what the uses of that have been.
Okay, but you have no evidence of that money being used to fuel terrorism at this point, which is what some conservative writers are alleging.
That's why it's an investigation. We started it last week. We'll see where it goes. But I can tell you that, it's terrible. Representative Omar tried to downplay it, said, oh, it was very, it was very tough to know how this money should should be used.
Yeah.
You know, she was gaslighting the American people.
Well, we'll
You know,
talk to her.
Yeah, but you know, when you come to this country,
You should talk
got to
to
learn
her.
which side of the road to drive on. You got to learn to stop at stop signs, and you got to learn the not to defraud the American people.
Oh, you got to learn to not defraud the American people. She doesn't know where that money went. But speaking of Ilhan Omar, we should talk to her. We should know what she's saying. She says the questions about the Somali community in Minneapolis is just white supremacy. I mean, what do you expect her to say, really? White supremacy. That's what she says. Here she is.
I want to ask you about something else that the architect of the president's immigration policy, Stephen Miller, said. On Thanksgiving Day, he posted, "No magic transformation occurs when failed states cross borders. At scale, migrants and their descendants recreate the conditions and terrors of their broken homelands." What do you make of this argument of failure to assimilate and sort of ruining America? How do you understand this?
I mean, when I think about Stephen Miller and his white supremacist rhetoric, it reminds me, yes, it reminds me of the way the Nazis described Jewish people in Germany. And, you know, as we know, there have been many immigrants who have tried to come to the United States who've turned back, you know, one of them being Jewish immigrants.
Enough. White supremacy. That's what she goes on to say. And I'm sorry, it's just that filth, that gaslighting, not acceptable here. She married her own brother, according to numerous reports from numerous credible outlets, to get him into the country illegally. As much as $300 billion ripped off from Minnesota taxpayers by organized crime from Somalia, and the money being shipped back to Somalia. You've heard her say on occasion, her first allegiance is to Somalia, not to this country. How do we let this happen? 80,000 Somalian voters, give or take, in Minneapolis. That's how she got elected. That's how she will continue to get elected. Assimilation is incredibly important in America. Come here to build America. Don't come here to send money back to where you came from while trash-talking the country and calling people like me white supremacists because we pointed out that there is fraud, flat-out fraud. And as Scott Bessent pointed out, it was an IRS investigation. The state of Minnesota didn't even figure it out, and Tim Walz taking the same narrative, blaming Republicans for his failures. It is really quite something, blaming Republicans for his complete and abject failures. This part of the program brought to you by 1775 Coffee. That's the coffee we drink here, folks. 1775 Coffee. It's not your average cup of joe, not at all. It's high-performance coffee. We love 1775 Coffee, and you can find out more at 1775coffee.com. You'll get a discount as well for being a listener here. 10% off, because average coffee isn't just good enough. It's what gets us fired up here in the morning. Yeah, 1775coffee.com. Promo code Gruber. You'll save 10% of that cup of joe, and you'll be glad you did because it's really, really good. We're going to talk about the Michigan Transportation Funding Package coming up. Doesn't seem to be working. Are you surprised? I'll explain after the break.